So look who's back on this YouTube thing. And I hope I'll be more consistent with this, but that's not the point of the video. Today we'll be covering 3 chords that you can use to make your music more interesting. And these are not some revolutionary super secret chords. Actually, 2 of them, you probably already know them and use them already. So let's get into it. So the first chord that we'll be covering is the diminished major 7 chord. It sounds like this in isolation. And here's how it sounds in context. So to build the diminished major 7, we'll first need a major 7 chord. We'll build on C because it's more straightforward, but it can apply to anything else. We'll have C, and then E, and then G. That is a C major triad. To turn this C major triad into a C major 7, we'll skip this A, and then go to the B. I don't know if you can see the scale highlight. Now we have a C major 7. You can also just duplicate the root, move it down a semitone, and then move it up an octave. So now we still have the major 7. And to turn this major 7 into a diminished major 7, we'll have to change this bass triad into a diminished chord. We'll first mute this note because we don't really need it for now. And then we'll take the major third, turn it into a minor third. So now we have a minor triad. When we take a fifth and drop it down by semitone, it doesn't really become a minor fifth, it becomes a diminished fifth. So we'll drop it down by a semitone. So now we have a diminished triad. And then when we bring back the major 7, we get a diminished major 7. So let's see how we can use this diminished major 7 in an actual chord progression. And before we start using the diminished major 7, let's just do a little breakdown of the chord progression because it's necessary to know how to apply it in this context. We are in the key of A minor and we are starting on the 1. The 1 simply means the chord built on the first note of that scale, and in this case it is A minor, as you can see here. And then we go to the 5, but this time I use an E augmented instead of an E minor. I know it's out of key, but it works, so it doesn't really matter. And then next we go to the 6, also known as the flat 6, and it is in F major 7. Remember this chord because it is our target to use our diminished major 7. After that we have the 4 chord, which is D minor, and then finally a quick 2-5-1. So our point of focus in this chord progression is this F major 7. We're going to be turning it into a diminished major 7. And to do that, let's apply the same steps. So we take the 3rd, drop it down by semitone, we also take the 5th, I can't even talk, and then also drop it by semitone. So now it is a diminished 5th. So now we have a diminished triad. Now it sounds like this. The difference is subtle, but it's definitely there. I don't know, but the interaction between these 2 notes is beautiful. Now, one way to make an out-of-key chord fit in a chord progression is to add some kind of distraction. That can be a melody, it can be sound selection, it can even be the mix or what? I forgot. What's the last point? Or even the voicing. Yeah, the voicing as well. The voicing is actually really important. Voicing simply means how you arrange the notes of a chord throughout the octaves and in what order they're being played. And in this case, I'm just using this top line to kind of guide the listener's ear. And then at the bottom, I can just do whatever I want with the chord. Now, you don't have to choose between one or the other. You can use both the diminished major 7 and the major 7 in the same progression. Crazy. But then there's other contexts in which we can use this chord, and I'll let you figure that out on your own. For the next chord, we're going to be covering the good old major triad. The plain Jane major triad, not major 7 or any fancy stuff. It's just root, major 3rd, perfect 5th. What's going to make it stand out is the context in which we use it. And in this case, we're going to be using it as a borrowed chord. So let's go to our next example. And for the sake of consistency, we are still in the key of A minor. Now, in A minor key, the chord number 4 is a minor chord. And in the case of A minor, the chord number 4 would be 1, 2, 3, 4, which is D. And when we build a chord on it, we get a D minor. When we look at the major key now, chord number 4 is a major chord. So in the key of A major, the chord number 4 would be D major. So what we're doing is we're taking that 4 chord from the major key and placing it in a minor key. It's pretty much a borrowed chord. And in this case, we are going from D minor to D major. So let's apply that to our example. We'll take that minor third, which is the note that makes it minor, and then turn it into a major third. Now we have a D major chord, and it sounds like this in context. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And you can also get some Western vibes when using the 4 chord as a major chord in a minor key. Now, for the final chord, we're going to be covering one of my favorites, which is the minor 9 chord. The minor 9 chord is a pretty common chord, but the way we're going to be using it is as the 2 chord of a minor key. Now, when we take a look at the chords of a minor key, chord number 2, also known as the 2 chord, is a diminished chord. We're going to be taking it and turning it into a minor 9 chord. And this is how it would sound in context. So, to build a minor 9 chord, we'll first need a minor triad. So we have root, minor third, perfect fifth. So we have this. And then we'll need a seventh, a minor seventh. To get the minor seventh, you can duplicate the root, move it down a semitone. This is a major 7. But when you take a major 7 and drop it down a semitone, we get a minor 7. So now we move it up an octave. And it sounds like this. This is an A minor 7. And then after that, we simply skip the octave, which is technically 8, and then we go to 9. Now, the 9 is the same note as the 2, but in the next octave and also in the context of this chord. I'll just copy this, and then we're going to go to our example. So the parts that we are interested in is this second part here, and we haven't made any changes to it. We still have our B diminished here, which is the 2 chord of A minor. Since we copied that last chord, I'm just going to delete this, then paste the chord, move it here. But then remember, we need it as the 2 chord. A minor is the 1 chord. So we'll just go right there. Now we have the 2 chords because we are on B, as you can see here. Now we have, it may sound weird in isolation, but let's just hear it in context once again. So the whole point of this video was never to show you these 3 chords, but instead to show you how a chord is simply a building block, and if you use that building block in a different context, you can make a major triad sound beautiful.